Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. We are here as your host, Kyle Ellicott, to talk about emerging markets and what's happening from the investment and venture side of the world, looking at these new emerging markets in regions around the world where technology and industry and innovations are thriving. And we've brought together two outstanding speakers and investors here, a part of the VCTV family, to share with you their thoughts and insights and on-the-ground perspective of what's happening in specific emerging markets around the world. So you as investors know what's happening and where to place your bets, and you as entrepreneurs know the opportunities and potential regions you may want to get started in and or want to expand to your customer base as well. And a big thank you to your audience for tuning in. If you like what you hear, click subscribe. Do reach out if you'd like to be a guest on our show here at VCTV. We'd love to have you. And also for you entrepreneurs, an opportunity to join our virtual stage, pitch us your company, product, or service, get real-time feedback, also exposure to the entire VCTV community. What better way to end the year and start the next than just that? Reach out to the team and or myself. We'd love to find the right spot for you. Speaking of team, a big thank you to LA Token and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. As your host, Kyle Ellicott, let's go ahead and get started. Gary, quick introduction, a little background.
Yeah, great to be here, Kyle. My name's Gary Fowler. I'm an investor and a serial entrepreneur. I've done 16 companies. I've been involved in 2 unicorns, Click Software, which was brought over from Haifa, Israel to the US. I was hired by Oak, and that company was sold 19 months ago for 1.35 billion. I'm also the co-founder of EVA, YVA.ai, one of the top AI HR tech companies in the world today. I'm the CEO and co-founder, CEO, president, and co-founder of GSD Get Shit Done Venture Studios. And we curate companies from all over the world, especially emerging markets, to help them go global. And I write a lot. I've written 107 articles about artificial intelligence in the last year, and entrepreneurship, and quantum now, Kyle, because of you. So it's great to be here. And it's great to be on VCTV as always.
Absolutely great to be here as well, and with both of you. And last but not least, Lubna, welcome back to the show. A little intro, a little background, please.
Hi, thank you so much. It's great to be here. Good to see you both. I'm Lubna Dajani. My background's in systems analysis and design. So I've always been interested in holistic look at the impact of technology on the quality of life, and specifically the experiences we create at where physical meets digital. My entrepreneurial career started around when I had my first daughter some 25 years ago, and I became the head of the CIO of a wireless carrier, a startup. We raised 150 million, and then I moved into mobility, and then security, identity, authentication at large, and all emerging in technologies, and be it blockchain or AI or immersive, as you know. My interest is primarily in where investment interest is in regenerative and a social entrepreneurship, creating a horizontal wealth creation rather than vertical wealth accumulation, as I say.
Wonderful, wonderful, and a pleasure to have both of you here. And diving right into today's, sorry, Lubna, diving right into today's topic, emerging markets. So we all three of us have spoken on and offline as well around our experience and our expertise around emerging markets and the idea of going global as well. And would love to hear from both of you what you're seeing as the really emerging market landscape, right? Where are the opportunities? Where are some of these emerging markets? A few years ago, that was, I would argue, Southeast Asia. And now that's something on a much bigger scale, as we've talked about LATAM, we've talked about parts of Africa and also South America as well. But we'd love to hear from both of you, your thoughts. Gary, let's start with you. Emerging markets, what are you seeing today as areas of opportunity, or where these are coming from?
You know, it's fun. Oh, my ring light just came down.
You got really bright for a minute there.
I knew that tape was not going to hold it. Anyhow, so, you know, I remember about 12, 15 years ago, and I was living in Russia, and they said BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And we were talking about that then. And really, the opportunities have really geographically dispersed. So we're personally looking at Africa, because we see a lot of opportunities there throughout Africa, especially South Africa, Nigeria. We're finding, and I'm particularly interested in artificial intelligence companies. And surprisingly, Kyle, we're finding the kind of right quality skill sets that you need there, which is, and I'm saying surprising because I had not heard about it before, but I'm finding incredible companies there. And we're very, very supportive of that environment. Also in LATAM and South America. So we're finding them, I mean, in places that you would never think about, like Argentina. And so this is in Chile. So this is really the opportunity of a lifetime. We're mining opportunities, and it's because of the technologies like Zoom. I mean, think about it. Part of the reason a few years ago we didn't do it is because we didn't have a way to really get there. You know, it would take too much time and to curate them. Now the situation is we can set up meetings right away. Those folks are reaching out during LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, and we're able to do things that would take months or years, and we're able to do them in days or hours. So it's a great opportunity. We're particularly interested in where we can have an impact, because as I said on other shows, is that if you give people jobs, high-paying jobs, and help their communities, everything changes and the world becomes a bit of a better place. And that's really, you know, so it's really a three-part opportunity from my perspective. The other thing is, one of the pieces we forget about is how to build those teams. So where we can really help are things like intergenerational, bringing people in that have the experience, culturally diverse, because if you have a multicultural team, it really helps widen the opportunity, and then decentralized. So if you've got the R&D work that's being done in South Africa, for instance, use that. You don't have to relocate the company to be able to get an impact. We use Silicon Valley as a port to the rest of the world. Open up your office in Silicon Valley, but don't take the jobs away where they're helping the most. Use those opportunities to be able to build the community, build the jobs. And what it does is starts to create a lot of interest. It's like a snowball effect. Once one company gets started, 3 companies start. And then from 3, you know, it's amazing how this thing starts to really grow. So that's where we are. And what I did is I looked at things differently, and I said, if we approach it from an entirely different perspective and assume the talent's there, what can we find? And I got to tell you, I've been irrational and now rational exuberance, right? Because in the beginning I was excited about it, and now I'm actually finding it, and it's amazing. Actually, it's amazing. I have one company that I just found that is in the AI space that's doubling for the last 6 months. It's doubled the revenue every month.
Wow.
Doubled. Now you think about that. Now, how far are they going to go with it? Who knows? But to start from scratch in Africa 6 months ago, and think about it, you know, you got 1 billion people that are untapped. It's an untapped market in and of itself. And what do they need? They need everything. So some of the technologies that can be taken, you know, on the other side of it, having those technologies in the US or European Union and be able to take those technologies there, that's another opportunity. So I'm incredibly excited about it.
Absolutely. I mean, this is great. We've also had a few investors that are focused on the markets in Africa. So Maya, who runs Ingress Capital as well, she's doing outstanding work in Nigeria and some of the other countries throughout Africa as well. So definitely check out her fund. Check out Gary's as well. And thank you, Gary. I mean, there's so much more I want to unpack there. But before we do, Lubna, to you, I mean, emerging markets, you have a very globally diverse background in your career, as we've spoken about as well. What are you seeing in terms of emerging markets and kind of what's getting you, or what regions are getting you excited here as we end the year?
Well, I think emerging technologies and markets happen anywhere and everywhere, but not just necessarily the developing world. But I fully agree with everything that Gary said in terms of Africa. My only difference, and I will add Egypt to that list of where some amazing AI innovation is coming out of, which I'm quite impressed with. I'm looking at it in terms of whether it's in indigenous communities, and again, Chile, again, Latin America, it's just indigenous communities, and how do we leverage technology to and enable entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurships in those regions that would take into account. So we're looking systemically at how do you regenerate the economy, the local economy, especially through the community and and investments that are leveraging the indigenous wisdom, combined with the latest and greatest that technology, that innovation out of the labs around the world, not only in Africa or in India or in Latin America, but innovation across the board. So collaboration and co-creation, it can is the ability to collaborate and to co-create, not just because technology is enabling, but because our mindsets have now opened up to it, are happening everywhere, and where we can bring the value of the innovations out of the lab and create innovation in implementation, in commercial references, and that are, as you know, my big word, regenerative, and respectful of that, the indigenous characteristic of the local region where it is being implemented, where the knowledge is shared on a global scale, on a global platform, but the value is created there. So what we are trying to make sure we don't do, and we protect against in our investments, is making, imposing our ways or capitalistic ways on, or what we think is needed, but rather bring, we say, regeneration in a pod, the technologies that are available, whether it's architecture or in engineering or in immersive technologies or what have you, to fortify and address the needs of that particular community. Some things that we're very excited about is community currencies, for example, so we can create local liquidity, and that sort of thing.
I love it. I love it. And to each of you, I mean, when you're looking at emerging markets and getting into from an investor standpoint for the first time, what advice do you have for investors that are looking to make that jump, right? Getting out of their comfort zone of where they typically invest to now opening up to new regions and markets around the world. There's so much that can be learned and experienced. What are some of those that you have that you would give to other investors looking to expand for the first time?
Yeah, so I mean, I can say from my perspective, remember Warren Buffett, right? You don't want to follow the crowd. You want to move in the opposite direction because that's where opportunities are. And I know when I first started going over to Russia, living there was in 2001, 2000. People said, "Oh, no, don't go there. It's not good." And those were some of the greatest opportunities that you could ever find. And people coming out of the woodwork, there were scientists and mathematicians, geniuses. Ukraine, Russia, Belarus. So you got to go to places where other people aren't. And think about it. There's a lot of folks that are in these, I'm finding in, not just there, by the way, in other places, even in the US, places that aren't, Silicon Valley, that are in the Midwest or in other places other than Austin, Miami, places that you would normally not think about, because guess what? They're underserved too. So if we're going out, one of the things is when you go out to those areas, what I found is you don't want to impose your values, like saying, "Oh, this is how we do it in the US or in Europe." It's not about that. It's about adapting to figure out how they do it and how you can adapt to that culture. Because if you start off on the other side of it, nothing good's going to happen, right? You'll create a defensive posture. Figure out. And then the other thing is, one thing we're really good in the States is hope and optimism, and and believing in the dreams and visualization and some of the soft things. People really like that. I'm sure, Kyle, when you were in China, you saw some of the things. We do bring hope and optimism. I mean, that's how America was built. When our forefathers came over, my grandparents from Greece and Egypt, actually, on my mom's side, and then Germany and the UK on my dad's side, they came over here for a dream, right? It's all about the dream. And it's one thing about, so you got to have the positive piece. At the same time, you got to show action. How can I really create a company? Click Software. When I started on the original management team at Click Software, this is a company from Haifa. At the time, Israeli companies weren't coming over in vogue, late 90s. It wasn't a big, it wasn't, oh, I don't know about Israel, et cetera. Now the situation is like the startup nation, right? But at the time, it was not. So look for those opportunities. Elon Musk came from South Africa. So there's a lot of really bright people that have mined opportunities, so looking to go global. So number one is don't impose your values. Two is, you got to connect with them, and having something like VCTV that's really a platform that reaches them is amazing. So show them the way, show them there's an opportunity, and give them that hope. And the third situation is investors need to be able to invest in these companies. So what we do is we actually bring the companies to Silicon Valley, set up Delaware Corporation with an office, in Santa Clara or Palo Alto, set it up so it looks like a company that is investable. It is a company that's investable. IP's transferred over. It meets all the kind of buckets that need to be made for serious venture capitalists to get involved in it.
Mm-hmm. It's a great point, and I think that's one of the things that's kind of lost is to your point is you've got to be local, as we've talked about before, right? You have to get a local presence in some way, shape, or form, and also understand there's a very big cultural difference as well. And we'll come back to that here in just a moment. But Lubna, to you, I mean, same question, advice for those looking to expand either in emerging technologies or emerging markets, as well as they both come with their own set of rules.
I trust your heart. It doesn't have all the question everything you thought was or you believed was a given. All the boundaries or the parameters or the that what we can and can't do, what is traditionally is done and isn't done, has changed. If anything, and we need to take the positive out of this whole COVID bit, is that a lot of the things that we thought we couldn't do or we couldn't invest in or were not possible, even if look at us, imagine last year talking about investing from Silicon Valley in East Africa. It's not as it was. Yeah, go ahead. Good luck. Now it's obvious that teams can happen from everywhere. Investment, we are looking for innovation is happening up and down the stack of technology, and there are many industries that have been very long-standing giants that are needing to clearly have been exposed and are now needing to be disrupted. So take what you already know, areas that you already know, and embrace areas that you are interested in, and open up to possibilities other than what you've been used to. So I would, we're starting again a small fund that is a pass it forward type of fund where everybody that is that is being invested in will pay back and invest forward. There are a lot of creative ideas. You should look at crowdfunding and ways to get involved instead of just sitting in some currency. I think it's a wonderful time to be a seed investor or an angel, or the barriers are a lot lower now, and I think Absolutely. It's much more exciting.
Yeah, and I mean, you bring up a great point. I mean, there's so much information out there, so much research that you can do and you should do when you're looking to expand into new emerging markets. But because of the ability to have teams and companies and funds, et cetera, spread everywhere so easily, there's so many people that you can easily reach out to or tap into to give you insights on what's happening in those local regions. I mean, Gary, I mean, you're doing a lot of work in Africa. I mean, what are you seeing in addition to what you've already mentioned happening on the ground for those that may want to get into it? And, furthermore, what can they do as that first step, wanting to follow your footsteps in maybe investing in the region as well?
Well, I mean, there's some incredible accelerators that have started to come up. I mean, there's groups like Triota's Investment that really look at impact, how to impact in Africa. There's companies like Philips that have board members that are impact board members from Africa. So, I mean, there's a great push. I mean, think about it. I mean, Africa is really untapped. Has been, for the most part, untapped. And so, how do they get involved? I mean, one of the things is attend pitch competitions for African startups. Get online, figure out where those pitch competitions are, and look for those pitch competitions and start the dialogue. So there's no time like the present. You know, the one thing, Kyle, I've learned in my life, and I've been an entrepreneur since I've been 21 years old, is that first of all, you got to stay positive. You got to visualize and believe in your dreams. And the other thing is you got to get shit done. That means most people talk about stuff, right, Lubna, and they don't do anything. The key is taking the action and going forward. I mean, sometimes it's not easy, but I know one thing that I always tell myself as an entrepreneur and investor is that, Gary, if you're going to do it, just shut the hell up and do it. You know what I mean? Don't be talking about, oh, I think I'm going to have these grand plans. I'm going to do this.
It's all the plans.
You know, I'm going to plan yourself to death. Remember, I built 27 houses. My biggest house had 87,000 bricks. I'll never forget. And by the way, my father told me when I started my first company, construction tech company, Gary, you listen, you went to graduate school to be a clinical psychologist. Be a clinical psychologist. Why you want to be an entrepreneur? Nothing good's going to happen. Who's going to give you a salary? And I'm like, I want to do this, Dad. And it was so funny because as I started building these houses, and they're, 6,000, 7,000 square feet houses, and designing them myself and coming up with all the architect. I mean, literally the whole thing. And I had a structural engineer review it so it wouldn't fall down. But one of the things I learned is that you got to believe in yourself. And if you got a dream, you got to do it. And you also need to do customer development. Make sure that your vision is the same vision that other people have, right? That it's an idea that they're willing to pay for it and, grab it out of your hands. So, and luck. But going to Africa, it's not easy. It wasn't easy for me to go to Russia. It was not, I was living in St. Petersburg and Moscow, traveling to Vladivostok and Irkutsk, the Far East, as far as you could go. As you know, Kyle, China's the same way. It's just, you got to adapt. Some things, like in some parts of the world, a contract is a starting point. So signing a written agreement means that's where the negotiations start. And for Americans, it's really tough to understand that, but I got a signed agreement, but no, this is where the negotiations start. So you got to go by their culture. You got to make sure that you understand. One of the ways, Kyle, to do it is I'm a co-chair of AmCham in Russia today, even today, for the last 20 years. One of the things I would do is I'd go to the American Chamber of Commerce in whatever country you're in, and I would talk to them and get some insider information, go to the board of directors, figure out who's the chairman of the board, talk to the president of AmCham, and get some information. So you're going in with an open eye. The other thing is you can go to the U.S. Embassy on the American side, and I'm sure other countries have the same, but we have a commerce department in the embassy. And if you pay a gold key program, they will actually go out and do the work for you to find partners. They will find the accelerator. It costs about $700 or $800 to have them do it, but so the person that does do it is a local who works for the embassy. And so it makes a whole lot better in terms of your connections. And it takes what would take you years. I've done it in a month in countries, right? By less than a month by using them. And I had the real deal. I didn't have games played with me because they didn't want to fool around with the person from the embassy, right? To do the right stuff. That's an easy way to go about doing it.
It's very true. Economic development organizations across different countries will curate innovations from their country that have been vetted, and they'll go out of their way to support them, which is another way to find interesting investments. And it goes vice versa. That you could use your own country's economic development investments and power to expand your reach. Gary is full of great advice today.
The thing is, I had to go down and do it myself. It's like so people said, AmCham, I became the co-chair of the Innovation Technology Committee. And so I figured, well, I'm on the inside. On the Russia side, I became part of the presidential dialogue, the Bush-Putin dialogue. So you got it's context. And by the way, Kyle, the most important thing is trust. You try to do the right thing, I had a friend of mine tell me a very interesting statement one time, and I never forgot it. He said, I worked in Africa, and this was many years ago, and he was in the oil industry. He said, one thing I got to tell you, Gary, he said, be sure that you treat people the right way, because as those countries start to mature and those people go from, third world to the point that they're actually, a global contributor, they will not forget how you've treated them, and make sure you treat them the way you want yourself being treated. Fair, honest, all the pieces that are right. And I never forgot that. And it's absolutely true in business. No matter if it's there or in the States, you meet the same people going up as you do coming down.
Absolutely.
And people remember how you make them feel.
Yeah.
So true.
Absolutely. So to both of you, as we come close to the top of the hour here, before closing thoughts, if you were to pick an emerging market along with an emerging technology, to Lumina's point, that you're most excited about, that may be a hidden secret in your world for 2021 that people should be paying attention to, where and what would it be? Lumina, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, because you see me, I'm
tech,
thinking.
yeah. Technology in a region.
Well, if I separate them, well, I'm very, very keen on, this whole idea of community-based regeneration, echoing out the excess value that is generated, so that you have economic stability and prosperity locally. But so for me, because I'm a systems person, I think I'm very big on this whole integration of multiple technologies together. So I am working with a quantum key generation and distribution company, one company that we're advising, one of the Horizon 2020 investments, which is really cool. But I guess if I've been most excited recently about an implementation of AI, AI sits above a different layer, but a knowledge base architecture, a knowledge base implementation of a graph, of a blockchain. So it's like a decentralized model rather than a serial linked list, which I think is brilliant. I'm in love with it, maybe because it's a similar idea to something I have been thinking about. How do you test hard identity from a carrier point of view some years ago, and I came up with this architecture, which this company seems to have been implementing. So it's about privacy, identity, and a personal data store. And how do you manage personal data? Because that's becoming very, very important. And it's not about who controls that data, where that data sits exactly, but how do you implement ownership and control? So I think because our own well-being is not just our physical well-being, but our hybrid physical and digital. So yeah, I'm very interested in that stuff. I think it's super exciting. And I think immersive will be a lot more exciting now because there's a lot more acceptance to it. Yeah, see, I'm a total geek. Then I'm all into this nano, and I'm very excited about these printable circuitries, whether you stick them on or they're tattooed onto your skin. I think those will be very interesting new ways of. But for me, I look at that as a hybrid models to establish identity, even where it's partly on you, partly in you, or or just stuck to you kind of thing. And markets, I think. It's the emerging market I'm most interested. There are underserved people everywhere. So yes, I'm a very, very keen on Africa because I think we also are running against the clock. If we westernize Africa too much, we're at a grave loss. I think because a lot of the indigenous wisdom of the people that are, most of Africa is young, will be lost. But I think this is I'm just going to say this at the end, that it's a very interesting time. We have to really sit back and reflect, because this is the first time, and probably the last time in our history, that we have people, multiple generations living at the same time, where we have people who have known life without a color TV or even a black and white TV. There was the radio was maybe the best that they had, and they're living at the same time in the same household with people that were born with a tablet in their hand practically. So there's a lot of there's a lot to take in there, and I think we have a great opportunity to learn from the past, to create a much more beautiful future for all of us. And I'll say I'm Lubna Dajani. Find me on LinkedIn at Lubna Dajani, or better yet, on VCTV.
There you go. I love it. I love it, Gary.
I'm getting there.
Thank you.
No one as good as Gary at this, though.
Well, he's up next, so we'll see. Gary, you got to follow that. Let's see if you can do
Kyle's my mentor. You know what I mean? Kyle's my mentor.
Yeah.
I'm not
Mine
worthy.
too, mine too.
So, from my standpoint, this is a great opportunity. I mean, think about it. I talk about this a lot, but the amount of data around us is about 40 zettabytes of data. That's enough to go to the back and forth to the moon if we stack CDs up, DVDs, one on top of another, 29
Wow.
times. So, and it's growing 62% per year. So we are inundated with information. Alvin Toffler said in his book, Future Shock, Infobesity, we're at that state now. I mean, think about it. On the call here, the viewers, think about how many email addresses you have, how many data storage places, Google Drive, Dropbox, Box, Slack, you've got Facebook Messenger, Telegram, WhatsApp. It's crazy. And how many times do we say, I know the file exists, but I can't find it? Why? Because they've forgotten the location or forgotten the keywords. It's insane. It doesn't matter if you have a PhD from MIT, it's the same issue. I've talked to a CEO of one of the largest companies in the world, and he said, Gary, I've got a simple thing. I just erased my email messages. I don't have to worry about it. And if it's that important, right, they'll send it back to me. So any company that figures out goes down and uses technology to become not smart, but intelligent assistants to help us make sense of this data-driven world is really important. And artificial intelligence, I did knowledge graphs with Eva. We've got variational autoencoders, ladder networks, unsupervised AI, so the systems can start to think on their own. The other thing is we need to make sure, I'm looking for companies that do like emotion AI, to building ideas like compassion. It's like a kid being trained. You want to make sure you train them to be somebody good in their life and not a Ted Bundy, and you want to make sure we're training the AI the right way. This is an exciting time. Technology is changing so rapidly. Think about it. I mean, Google, right? All the AI that Google uses today and Facebook, we're inundated. So I'm excited about companies that make sense of the world. I'm excited about artificial intelligence as a new electricity, machine learning, deep learning. And I'm really excited about these emerging markets because they've got the curiosity of a child coming out in a good sense. They believe in dreams. They're looking forward in their lives and they see the opportunities. And now the situation, how can we capture those and help them make the world a little bit better place? And as Steve Jobs said, put a little dent in the universe. So that's where we are. And I'm excited about it. My name is Gary Fowler. You can reach me on LinkedIn, Facebook, WhatsApp. I mean, you name it, Twitter. I'm happy to talk to you and go get them. Believe in your dreams. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. This digital transformation has really equalized the world and given you access to people you normally wouldn't have, like we have on VCTV.
Absolutely. Thank you both, Gary and Lubna. Thank you as well to you, the audience, for tuning in. Please do make sure you reach out, and thank you both to Gary and Lubna to continue the conversation, whether it's relevant to today's topic or previous topics we've spoken about with them here on VCTV. And remember to add context when you do reach out, where you heard from them, what you want to talk about, and how you'd like to continue that conversation as well. And also, if you like what you hear today, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up as well, and do check out the archive for previous episodes of VCTV. And if you'd like to be on an episode, whether as an investor like Gary or Lubna, or as an entrepreneur, we'd love to have you join us either here on a panel or a virtual stage. Do reach out to the team and or myself, and we'll find the right fit for you. Speaking of that team, a big thank you to the LA Token team and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me everywhere online at Kyle Ellicott on all social media, just like Gary and Lubna. And again, remember to add context when you reach out. With that, we'll see you back here tomorrow with more VCTV. Take care, everybody. Bye.